Hello, BookTube, and this is my wrap-up for March. It's the books that I read in March and a TBR for April. Not all my TBR for April, but I'll explain that when I get there. So these are the books that I read in March, and there's no specific order here with these, and I do have specific videos for each of them. I'll link down below, or just to some of them, and I will talk briefly about it. But and if you're interested in more, then you can go to the video. Continuing with Emile Zola's the Rougon-Macquart series. This is the third chronological book, The Kill, and it's set in the early 1850s, and it's about another Rougon, a brother to Eugene Rougon that was in His Excellency Eugene Rougon, his brother, and his wife and second wife and son, and his greed for money and getting into property speculation because of the big boom that was happening at the time with the redevelopment of Paris. It's been called the biggest redevelopment, urban renewal that's ever been done. And it made many millions, and it's bankrupted many as well. And it's about him and his second wife and his son, who is having a sexual affair with his stepmother, the second wife. So very spicy. And there's a video for that. And this was done for Vin's Gothic book club. James Hogg, The Private Memoirs and Confessions of a Justified Sinner. This is the Oxford World Classic, and so was the Kill. Oh, let's go back to that and say it was translated by Brian Nilsson. This doesn't need translating because it was in English. It was published in 1824. And James Hogg was grew up being a shepherd, but started writing and publishing in the Edinburgh Magazine, and he actually became an editor, and he started his own magazine, but he was doing other work with Sir Walter Scott and others at the time. And this came out, and it was a bit of a dud, but it's a fascinating book. It's a novel, but it pretends to be a sort of found manuscript with an editor. James Hogg inserts himself near the end, kind of cleverly and interestingly. It's about someone who is a Calvinist who believes in sort of predestination and is a fanatic, and thinking that because he's going to go to heaven, he can punish other sinners, so he's justified being a sinner by killing people. Or is he? And yeah, it's a lot of play, duality through it, of questioning things, of beliefs, how far do you go, and also the truth of sort of what history sort of says, because it's centered around, or the framework is an editor telling the history of this person, Robert, and from historical records and from memory. And then you get his own memoir, which is very, very odd at times. He questions himself, but he's sort of, is it religious fervor, religious mania, or psychological mania? Or is it actually, are there demons and things happening here. Very interesting. It needs to be closely read and comparing the sections to really get the full effect of it and sort of understanding of it. But it can be read on different ways, different levels, which makes it. I love this kind of stuff. And the cover on here is kind of neat. It's a detail from the red dragon and the woman clothed. I think that's what it says, with the sun. 1803 to 1805 by William Blake. Very cool cover art. So I did a video on that as well. The third book in the Louis L'Amour Sacketts series. And this was published in 1980. It's the third chronological one. It's continues the story of the Sacketts, obviously, but it's Barnabas's son, the oldest son, Kin Sackett, and his sort of trying to get justice for a female kidnap victim in a white female slave ring to quash it. And it's a fun read. And I did a video on that as well. This was the pick for my Patreon. Heck, maybe I should have waited till tomorrow to do this because I'm tired and my brain is not working that well. Patreon book club, Faded Pages book club, and it's a fantasy of Dr. Ox by Jules Verne. Very short. It's an Alma 101 page classic, translated by Andrew Brown. Can't remember when it was originally written. 1872 it was published. And strange. It's not what you'd expect really from Jules Verne, but it was interesting. It was funny in places and lots of play on words. It was quite interesting. And if you are interested in my Patreon book club, you can join the Patreon book club. It's something separate from here, and it's where I give like 4 choices. It's usually a theme that's set out, and then we discuss the book as we're reading it on Voxer, or when we're finished, like in this case, because it's so short. But yeah, the information's down below if you'd like to join that. But yeah, Jules Verne, and I have not did a video about that, but that's interesting. Here's something that was just I found it absolutely fantastic and fabulous. It was originally I was told about it by Brandy at the Book Eclectic, and I put it in my wish list. And I don't know who somebody if they did say who it was, the card didn't, or the little slip did not come through saying who gifted this to me for my birthday. And it's Juna Barnes, the early works of Juna Barnes, Vivid and Repulsive as the Truth. Fabulous stuff. I really like it. I really, especially her early sort of journalism. Just some amazing stuff. I'm hoping to do a video with Brandy on this eventually, and talk about the writing, because it's just it's amazing. And there's 3 sections. There's a section on fiction. It took me a little while to get into the fiction, and then all of a sudden the fiction sort of clicked, and then I went back and reread the couple, and I go, oh yes, I get it now. And then the poetry, I liked some of it, but the thing is, I have to get her book. It's called like there's verse in here, The Book of Repulsive Women. I have to get that book. Just, that's a fabulous title. The only thing that it was edited and put together with an introduction by Catherine Malher. Now, it's called Vivid and Repulsive as the Truth. So there are, and this is written sort of around the, a lot of it's At least the journalistic stuff is around First World War era. And this was done in 2016. This collection by Dover Publications. Now, as I say, the title is Vivid and Repulsive as the Truth. And so it does have its, usual, centered things of the times, which are going to be different views that we have now. That's going to be a given. And remember the title, Repulsive as the Truth. And the editor says near the end of her introduction, she says, indeed, some of the pieces include in this collection espouse views with which I'm still uncomfortable. That discomfort is important. However, some articles quote language and viewpoints that I find not only uncomfortable but reprehensible. Rather than edit the language of these pieces, I've chosen to exclude them entirely. I hate that. It just irks me so much. Makes me angry because you've got it in the title that it could be repulsive. Show how she was repulsive. Don't get me started. But I'm hoping that I can, Brandy and I can do a video talking about this because I really like it. And I do want to read more of her writing, definitely. Another book that was given to me for my birthday by Amy at the Amy's Dusty Bookshelf. And it's Once Upon a Tome by Oliver Darkshire. And this was published last year, 2022. I think that's right. Let me just check here. Yeah, 2022 by Bantam. Bantam Books. This is the British edition with a dust jacket. The American edition is a naked hardcover. I don't really care for it that much. But anyway. It's about a young man who's in his early 20s that he gets a job as, first of all, an apprentice at a antiquarian books store, Southern Books Limited, Henry Southern Limited in London, and it was established in 1761. So it's a very old bookshop. Been through different many hands out of the family long ago. Originally in New York and set up in London, and he learns about books, and it goes through the sort of oddities of him learning about things, about the rare book trade, other colleagues, how he's trained, and things like that. It's quite interesting. I do like it because I had my own bookshop, so there's a lot of interest here for me. And there's William Gibson, the science fiction writer, has a blurb there saying peculiarly hilarious. Not sure about that. Lindsay Fitzharris, who she's an American that's done a lot of very interesting stuff on early surgery. I think she used to have a blog before she was published called Surgeon's Apprentice, but it's CR or whatever. But very interesting. But her quote here is an enchanting billet due to the arcane and eccentric world, for whatever that's worth. Make sure I don't knock this pile over. I'm still going through these. As I say, there's no order. And I've read The Maltese Falcon again by Dashiell Hammatt, by Dashiell Hammatt for the Black Arts Book Club run by Kari at Literary Kari, and I will be doing on April 2nd at 6 p.m. UK time a live video discussing this, and I believe the film as well. And this was published originally, 29 and 30, it was serialized. And this is I think it's an Alfred Knopf, I think, Orion edition. I like the artwork on it, and I really enjoy it. So it's Sam Spade, 1930s, San Francisco private dick, and we'll be talking about it on Sunday. Another birthday gift by Jenny, one of my subscribers, is the first 5 books of the Dresden Files, and this was the first book, Stormfront, about Harry Blackstone, Copperfield, Dresden, and it's set in modern day Chicago, and he's a detective, but he's a detective with a twist because he is a warlock, and he gets called in by the Chicago PD police department to help with crimes, and this is the first book that he appears in, and there's somebody that is doing supernatural murders, very powerful murders, and he's in the frame for it, so he's got to extricate himself and catch the bad guy, woman, whichever. So I'm not going to spoil it. I did a video of this as well, which I'll try to link. I read the Forgotten Planet by Murray Leinster for the Rogers Cheapo Book Club. Roger at Vaughan Manor, and I read it in the armchair. What's it called? Armchair Fiction, which is a print on demand, but they're quite nice, and they're doing them like an ace double, but not flippable. And I also read today, the Friday in the afternoon, because I'm recording it Friday, but it'll go up on the 1st. The Peril of the Starman by Chris Neville. But just quickly, it's the Forgotten Planet is a planet that gets forgotten. It's in the future. Earth is overpopulated, so it's moving out to the stars, and they find planets. Preferably, if they are habitable, they move in basically, and then. But this one gets sort of forgotten, and there is no life on it, so it gets seeded with life. But then after time, there's a crash land of spaceship. The planet is forgotten in a humorous way of how it was forgotten, and I won't spoil that part if you decide to read it. It's very pulpy. Don't try to think that you're wanting a perfect science fiction book with science in it. There's things you go, wait. Forget about that. Just go for the story, and it's a fun story. And then The Peril of the Starman by Chris Neville. I have not done a video on that. I did a video on The Forgotten Planet. Peril of the Starman it's a novelette by Chris Neville. Written in, I think, 1954. It was published in Imagination, I think, magazine. It's not a great, it's not a top drawer, top shelf science fiction story. It's aliens that look very much human, and I think there's a reason for that. There is some subtle thing of that. There's a human aspect to it, but anyway, they are coming to Earth because the planet, the universe gets to a point where it's sort of, there's stress on it, and they need to destroy planets, apparently, and Earth is slotted for the next destruction. So they come to be friends, they pretend, and to blow up the planet, but things go awry for them because there's one that's a traitor to his people, and there's lots of sort of back and forth family squabble, politics and stuff in 100 pages, or less than 100 pages, about 85 pages. And it was a fun read. It was enjoyable, but I figured I'd read it as it was part of this. And then we go to the Hornblower saga, third book, Hornblower and the Hotspur. Did a video on this as well. And not my favorite one. C.S. Lewis, not very good in continuity, but also is the dialogue, the scenes between Hornblower and his newlywed, his wife, just is eye rolling. It's painful to read at times, but the action scenes were fun. There's a lot of good sea faring bits in here, so it was pretty good. And as I say, I've done a video on it. And then there was the Conscious of the Rich, which is the third book in the Strangers and Brothers series, set in the early 30s, about a family, Lewis Eliot's best friend, Charles March, and his very, very rich family, and also talking about how socialism in late 20s and early 30s England, and how that affects the family, and with their morals and their the conscience of the rich, like, you know, what their conscience is like. Very good video on that as well. A Dance to the Music of Time, the third book, is The Acceptance World. It's also late 20s. They sort of go hand in hand. This one has to do with communism, sort of socialist side too in England at the time. So there's a bit of overlap there in theme, but the characters are very different. This is we get Nicholas moving on. He's still working at the publisher, the art publisher, but he's published a book. And we get his other friends that come back in, Templar, Stringham, and Widmerpool, and very, very good writing at times. But yeah, I've done a video to talk about this. If you're interested, I'll hopefully link it below. I'm still not finished with what I read. And City on Fire, this was sent to me as to read for Will Shawn Like It by one of my subscribers, Freeman. And I did like it. It was good. It was a very, very quick read. It's about a mobster set in Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island. There was a lot of interesting things with it. Not great, but it was just a fun little read. Interesting characters, and apparently it's going to be one of trilogy. The next book is out in April, so if I get a chance, I'll read that as well. And then next year, maybe the final one. I did a video on that as well. And are we at the last one? Yes, we're at the last book, I think. Oh, no. There is one more, but I haven't... Well, I'll have finished it by tomorrow, so I will mention it. Mysteries of Paris by Eugene Sue. This is a big monster. This was for March of the Mammoths, and also reading with Mark at Book Time with Elvis. He's going through French literature, and I thought I'd do a reread of this, and especially this translation. I really enjoyed this. It's set in sort of the 1820s to 30s, possibly. But it's the underground, the underworld of Paris, all the way up to the kings, filthy rich. So all stratas of life. It's very pulpy in many ways. It was serialized in a newspaper, over 100 parts. So it's again not high literature, but it's just very fun, and it was important. It caused a lot of people questioning of the poor rights and poor people in the city. So that was good, and there was a video on that. And I've got a little bit left of this, which I'll be finished. Essays on the Maltese Falcon, the film. It's edited by William Lure. It's a collection of essays, if I haven't said that already, plus the script. So it's a very good. It's a great series. The Ritgers films and print. They're expensive if you pay full price, which I try not to. I've got a few of them. This was published in 1995. And it says volume 22 in the Ritgers film print series. I wouldn't say no to them all, but there's maybe about 5 that I particularly want when I've looked at the list before. So yeah, and I'll be discussing some things in this on Sunday on Very Literary Kari's live stream for the Black Arts Book Club. Now, if that wasn't enough, where are we for time here? We're at 25 minutes, so I have a huge TBR for April. I'll go through the non-VAMpril ones. I've done a sort of a potential VAMpril and MayPIRE video. I'll link that. But my final TBR for VAMpril will be done in the live, on my live birthday bash live at 6 p.m. I'll leave a link below if you care, and I hope you do stop by. The one thing that I'm going to read for the month, and I'm going to take the whole month to do it, is this here, Clarissa, by Samuel Richardson. I just found out that I thought this was the unabridged, but apparently it's not the unabridged. But anyway, it's close to 1,500 pages, so I'm going to be reading this over the month, and it's a bit of a thing. It's when I first tried to read it, I got shingles in my left eye after about 300 pages. Not the book, I don't think. But then I tried it again, and I got shingles the second time. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully not shingles again. So I'll be doing that for the month. The fourth book, Jubal Sackett in the Sacketts by Louis L'Amour. I'll just go through these quickly. The next book, The Light in the Dark of the Strangers and Brothers series by C.P. Snow. The next book in the Rougon-Macquart series by Emile Zola called Money. And then the next in the Dance to the Music of Time. This is the second omnibus, and it's at Ladies Molly. And for Roger's cheap old book club is New Arabian Nights by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is an older Alma Classics edition of it, collection of short stories. And the next, there's actually two Hornblowers that I'll be reading. There's the Hornblower. Oh, actually, I got the wrong one here. Sorry. I've pulled out the, this is the third omnibus. Sorry, I'll be reading Hornblower in the Crisis, and then the next Hornblower, and I can't remember what it's called. But there's an unfinished one, Hornblower in the Crisis, and some short stories. And I can't remember the next one, so I'll be reading those two. But they're short. And then for Mark's French for the month, he's put off Gargantua Pantagruel, which is fine for me. But Edmond Rostand's Cyrano de Bergerac play. So that should go pretty quickly. And hopefully we can get to Harlot High and Low, the sequel to Lost Illusions. I'm hoping I can get to this. This is the Penguin translation of it. And also for People April, that's Elizabeth at Bookwins and Books, I think it is. I'll link her video, and Roz and Scally Dangling about the books are doing people biographies and so forth. So I'll be doing a couple biographies in the month, and hopefully I can get to Balzac by Christopher Robb is one, and I'll be doing my Patreon book club as well. But because it was my birthday month, I decided to do a bunch of books. There's the one that's chosen, which I'm not going to say because I'm not saying that because that's for the Patreon book club. But they're all books about bookstores or bookstore owners, and there's several of them, and I want to reread some, and there's some that are new reads for me. So we'll see if I can get to these as well, because I have a huge TBR. And this is by Christopher Morley, Parnassus on Wheels. This is a very cheap Dodo reprint. It's I don't like the format of it, but I've got it really cheap, so that's what I'll be reading. This one I've never read, Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan, published 2012. I may or may not get to this. It is fairly short, but we'll see how it goes. I'd like to read it. Also, too, another one that I haven't read, but I'd like to, and I like the film of this. Ugly cover for it, but it's The Bookshop by Penelope Fitzgerald. Very short. And a really fabulous book called Furman by Sam Savage. It's set in a Boston bookshop where Furman is a little adorable rat who learns how to read by eating pages of books in the bookstore, and everything is through his eyes. And you can see the book is chewed up there at the top. Yeah. So I'm hoping I can get to all these, but I doubt it. And then my VAMpril TBR will be on my live tomorrow, or today. Sorry, I'm recording it Friday night, but it'll be today later at 6 p.m. UK time. Thank you. That's more than enough for TBR. Thank you, BookTube.